Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Go 24/7 podcast. My name is Bryce Kuhn. So glad that you decided to join us here on a fantastic Thursday. If you're listening on podcast, maybe audio only, maybe Spotify, maybe Apple Podcasts, wherever you consume the content, make sure to hit that follow button, subscribe to it, and let us know how we're doing down below. If you're here on the YouTube, we appreciate you as well. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the YouTube, set up notifications so you know when the next content is released. My name is Bryce Kuhn. We got a little fun stuff happening today, a little solo podcast action, my thoughts, my reactions to the SEC releasing LSU's 2024 slate of games. Now, they're not in order. We know that. You see it going down the bottom of the line right there. At the bottom of your screen, if you're watching, we've got the schedule. I'm going to read it out to you. The home games for LSU. They're going to host Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss, and Vanderbilt. On the road, the Tigers are going to be traveling to Arkansas, Florida, South Carolina, and Texas A&M. So let's kind of break this down, and I've got 3 points that I want to make throughout this podcast, so stay tuned, stay locked in. We're going to have a fun one here today. The first point is LSU's window of opportunity in 2024. When you looked and you watched the release last night over on the SEC Network, one thing stood out to me was, teams were having to go places that maybe made them a tad bit uncomfortable. Maybe they haven't been to before, creating high-profile matchups. The biggest one that I can, go from here and that stands out to me is going to be Georgia heading to Alabama. That's a primetime game. And LSU knows that after that game, one of the top two teams currently in the SEC is going to have a loss. That bodes well for the Tigers. But with LSU and the way that they're scheduling this window of opportunity that I wanted to talk about, I think that the Tigers are sitting in good position. You'll probably be, breaking in a new quarterback, although we'll see how much Nussmeier gets this fall. He's going to have some playing experience with what you would think is a growing and talented roster in Baton Rouge under Brian Kelly. But I think that one of the biggest things is that there's a window here. You get Alabama at home. Oklahoma. Now, look, a lot's going to change from 2023 to 2024, but if we're going off of what we saw last, look, Brent Venables has a lot of work to do in Norman. So hosting Oklahoma looks a lot different than it might look in 2024, but right now you have to like the fact that you get the Sooners at home. Another one, Ole Miss. Look, I know, SEC fans, we love to rag on each other and everything, but you have to admire the fact that Lane Kiffin will bring a talented roster into Baton Rouge when the Rebels come down and play the Tigers. But what will the quarterback situation look like? Will they be seeing a former LSU Tiger manning the quarterback position, or will it be somebody else? And then finally, one of the best games you probably could have hoped to get, and it's no disrespect towards Vanderbilt, which, side note, by the way, Vanderbilt is Vanderbilt, and they got absolutely destroyed, in my opinion, with the schedule, just a brutal schedule. Hey, at least you'll have some fun games to go to. They're hosting slate. But LSU gets to host Vanderbilt, and so remember, there's no divisions. You don't have the East and you don't have the West, but you get arguably your toughest opponent at home in Alabama. And look, you need no further proof than the fact that LSU beat them in 2022 at home in Brian Kelly's first year. Movement would say, the logistical aspects of this would say that LSU could go in there and win that game. Obviously, again, they could do it again, and you get them at home. We know the factor that brings into it. Looking at the away schedule and continuing on this window of opportunity in 2024, you're going to Arkansas. No more KJ Jefferson. What will Sam Pittman's team look like in 2024? I can't tell you that. If I did, I'd have a lot of money and probably wouldn't be doing this podcast. But what will they look like in 2024? You go there. Obviously, it's a rivalry game, the Battle of the Boot. It'll be interesting to see. But once again, I don't want to stick and fixate what they did in 2022. What I'd rather do is not really project, but say, hey, they're probably going to change, for better or for worse. We'll see. But Arkansas going on the road there, you have to feel good about, the fact that you avoided some of the other teams in the SEC and you get to go to Fayetteville. Going with Florida, you knew this game, and we all had a feeling that it would probably stay in the mix. But I think that one of the biggest things going to the Swamp is, what will Florida look like in 2 seasons and from now under Billy Napier. And I mean that after the 2023 season going into 2024. He'll have had 2 full seasons under his belt. Is DJ Lagway, the quarterback commit, is he arriving on the scene? Is he being that star player? Does he win the starting job? Do they find their footing offensively? I mean, look, the swamp, and I come from a sense of where I was an SEC fan before taking this position covering LSU. So I admired different venues. I admired different programs that you saw across the Southeastern Conference. The swamp is one of the better places to play in the SEC, although if the caliber of the team is not drastically better in 2024, that road trip, while still challenging, while still provides, some of the best clips that we saw, on LSU social media with Tom Petty's "I Won't Back Down" and Brian Kelly and the team singing it, it won't provide quite the challenge that I think that, people my age and older think of when they think of, oh, we've got to go into Gainesville and play Florida. We'll see how that pans out. I don't know how it's really going to look. But going to Florida, you feel confident about Brian Kelly taking this team into a hostile environment. At South Carolina, which I believe is going to be one of the more intriguing matchups in 2024 because of where LSU is heading, in my opinion. I think they're obviously trending upward. I think that's a national, pretty much shared opinion. But I think also the Gamecocks under Shane Beamer, look, you could argue multiple different ways what South Carolina did. South Carolina was pretty average for the first part of the season and got hot, knocking off Tennessee and Clemson in the end of 2022. Entering 2023, this is Spencer Rattler's final year. Do they have the solution behind him at quarterback who's ready to step in 2024? That's going to be one of the big question marks. So South Carolina is a question mark. Now, what they don't have a question mark of is that is a really primetime atmosphere to play in. I've been to a couple of games there, night games at Williams-Brice. I encourage LSU fans to purchase tickets for that one. It's a really cool atmosphere. Columbia, not a fantastic city in the sense, but that stadium, if it's a night game especially, going to be a lot of fun for LSU fans to make that trip to South Carolina. And then obviously the final game of this conference slate is Texas A&M going to College Station. You kind of feel like this one was going to stay as well. The SEC kind of pushing this rivalry that has really started ever since that crazy overtime game. They're really trying to make that bigger in a sense. But the biggest takeaway for these games, and as you continue to see the schedule that kind of rotate across your bottom line, if you're watching, we just listed them if you're listening on podcast, is there's a window of opportunity. Alabama having to play Georgia in the regular season, like we said earlier, is going to result in one of those teams, which maybe LSU views as, and some fans may not, 2 programs that are probably entrenched a tad higher than, in the sense of where they are in their makeup of the program. And I think Kelly and LSU are going to get there. It's still just year 2. But that in 2024, one of those teams is going to have one loss. Who else is really going to emerge? Do people expect Oklahoma to make that jump? I don't. I think Brent Venables has a lot of work to do over there. Can it be done? I believe so. Oklahoma's a place that you can go and get turned around fairly quickly, especially in this day and age of the transfer portal. LSU does not have to play Texas. Unfortunately, LSU went to Austin in 2019, did not get to play that game in 2020 due to the all-SEC schedule due to COVID-19. I would have loved to see Texas come to Baton Rouge. That'd be amazing. But getting Oklahoma is going to be really cool. And that kind of leads me into the next point, is where I love what the SEC did with this schedule. I think that the folks, and whatever side of the aisle that you sit on in this argument of we want 9 games, we want 8 games. Well, here's my opinion is the folks screaming that 8 games wasn't challenging enough. I think the SEC pretty much evened out what people were concerned about. I think that they did a great job of scheduling, having primetime matchups, and much like people on SEC Network's reveal show last evening said, the Georgia-Alabama regular season matchup really takes away a lot of the rift that I think people had with the SEC scheduling model. And so, look, if they decide to go to 9 games in 2025, fantastic. But we're talking about 2024, and I think that there's going to be no lack of a challenging schedule. And it brings me kind of, parlaying LSU into this conversation of where the SEC did a good job. And don't forget, LSU is going to be playing UCLA and USC in 2024. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And I think that you have to be happy, too, you don't get 9 conference games because that would probably be one of the more challenging schedules in the entire country. Obviously playing USC in Las Vegas and hosting the Bruins, who will obviously be making and getting ready for their Big Ten debut as well. So, look, there's a lot of things I think that LSU can take away and be happy about leaving the reveal show and saying, hey, there's challenging games. We're going to learn a lot about ourselves. But also, this isn't one where you say, man, the schedule's going to be daunting. So I think fans are winners of this. I think you get to go to some great home games. You get Oklahoma, you get Alabama, you get Ole Miss. For the fans that, the diehards that get to have the opportunity to go on the road, going a chance to play Arkansas, Florida, South Carolina, and then you add in the non-conference games in USC and UCLA. I think fans are winners in this too. So I really do like how the schedule shapes up. The final point of this, and this comes more of a question to you, the viewers, the listeners. So let me know if you're listening to the podcast. Let us know in the comments section. Just wherever you get your podcasts, hit me up on social media. You see me at Bryce_Coon or at Go247, or right here in the YouTube comments. LSU not having Mississippi State and Auburn on the schedule. And I'll start with the Bulldogs. I believe since the 1920s that the LSU and Mississippi State programs will not be facing off. That seems to be a tradition. It seems to be, obviously, with the SEC West and SEC East no longer being apart, you knew there were going to have to be sacrifices being made. And in the spirit of wanting to keep the LSU-Florida rivalry going, the LSU A&M and Arkansas, Mississippi State was one of those programs that kind of was on the chopping block. And so I want to get the opinion of that, because when you have a rivalry, a matchup that dates back so long, and it's seemingly every single year one of those early season SEC conference games, it provides a lot of information about your team. You can always circle and say, hey, we're either going to Starkville or they're coming here to kind of see what's going on. And so, that one for me, and I'll give my kind of personal opinion on it, is not as huge as the next one, and I'll explain that here. LSU not playing Auburn. I want to know how you feel about that, because here's how I feel. LSU and Auburn, for me, before I took this position, was always, as a casual observer, not a fan, a neutral observer, not a fan of either team, that's one of the more fun matchups to watch every single year, no matter which team is up, which team is down. And I only have to point to last season in Jordan-Hare Stadium in Auburn, where Auburn got out to the early lead, never scored again, and LSU ended up winning that game. So I think that when you see these battles between programs like LSU and Auburn that truly maybe aren't rivals, but I'll even make it more personal. I grew up on the banks of the Chattahoochee River, right on the Georgia-Alabama line, 30 minutes from Auburn. So I'm friends with Auburn fans. I have family that are diehard Auburn fans, the Auburn grads. And even some of the early text messages last night and into this morning about where and how do LSU fans feel about it, that's kind of to gauge the temperature of what you all feel about it. I'm going to miss that game. Now, look, it's not set in stone. If this changes in 2025, Auburn can definitely be a part of it. But to not have that game on the slate, I think is probably the one maybe black eye of the situation in the sense. Now, not a big one. You still, like I said, I think the fans won out in this. I think that the program won out in this. And the window of opportunity is there where this is a manageable schedule. And that'll be our last point. But wrapping up on the Auburn topic, look, I think that it's a great matchup year in, year out. There's a lot of great hatred between the two teams, great passion between both fan bases. And so when you lose a game like that, it's a product of where we're moving in this sport. And we're moving to what is going to generate the most money. It's going to be, obviously, 2 more teams joining the conference. You're going to lose out on opportunities like that. And so I hate that in the sense. Would love to get your thoughts. Let me know, like I said, down in the comments below. Mississippi State, Auburn not on the schedule for the first time in a long time. Mississippi State, I believe, since 1920s, and Auburn, I think, since 1990s. So, both before I was born, in the sense of where I have always grown up seeing LSU play these two teams. It's become second nature that when you look at the schedule, or you get your pocket schedule or your preview magazine around this time of year, every single year, you're used to seeing those games on the schedule. And so I think that when we turn and look and we don't see those in 2024, what's the gut feeling in that? And let me know down below. The final point here that I want to make with this, I love also what the SEC did in bringing Oklahoma and Texas and saying they're going to play all 14 teams. in the sense of Oklahoma's going to play 7, Texas will play 7. You're not going to overlap in the SEC, but you're going to play one of each. It's a great integration of these programs into the SEC. They were joking about it on the SEC network. What better way to introduce and saying, hey, here you go. And look, this is not a knock on the Big 12, but I think that the folks here listening, the folks here watching can understand is that with Texas and Oklahoma entering into this conference, you're going to have the sense of where do we belong? And you replace games against Kansas, Kansas State, who won the Big 12 last year, but Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, that they're good, but are they consistently good? I don't know. But you're making them go to Oklahoma or to Ole Miss. You're making them play at LSU, Alabama, Georgia, Florida. Texas's schedule. They're going to host Georgia and Florida, and I believe they're going to Alabama. Don't have that right in front of me, so don't judge me on that one. Let me know what I got wrong down in the comments below. But all of this to say is, I love how they did this in the spirit of the 8-game schedule. There's a lot of conversation with the meetings down in Destin just a couple weeks ago about where they would go with this. They decided on 8 games for 2024, and I think they knocked this out of the park. I really love where LSU sits in the schedule. I think it favorably gives them an opportunity to, beat an Oklahoma team that's going to be new to the SEC, still fairly early on in Brent Venables' tenure and hosting an Oklahoma program that, under Lincoln Riley, probably a higher profile matchup. Now, like I said, Oklahoma could definitely buck that trend and turn things around here very quickly. But getting Alabama at home, getting Oklahoma at home is huge, and Ole Miss as well. I love where LSU sits. Nowhere on that road schedule do I look at it and I say, okay, there's no shot we're winning at Arkansas. There's no shot that they're going to win in Florida. There's no shot they're going to win at South Carolina. There's no shot they're going to win in College Station. All 4 of those are manageable road atmospheres for an LSU program that is going to be battle-tested, in my opinion, when it comes to atmosphere, better than anyone. So I really like where the Tigers sit. Don't forget about those non-conference games, the 10 games that we know right now, obviously, with UCLA and USC, and not USC Junior, Southern California out there on the West Coast, formerly of the Pac-12, getting ready to join the Big Ten. This is reacting to the SEC release last night of LSU's 2024 opponents. Obviously, we don't know the dates, we don't know the order, but it is exciting nonetheless to see these programs be announced and us get a little glimpse into what the future of the SEC and LSU schedule will look like. My name is Bryce Coon, and thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to do more of these solo podcasts. We're going to have Glenn Westholm. We're going to have Sonny Ship. We're going to have Dylan Sanders. We're going to do some live shows where we ask you and let you interact with some comments about your thoughts. We're going to do maybe some bold predictions here. Don't forget, a couple of housekeeping right here as we get ready to close the show out. SEC is represented in Omaha. The LSU Tigers are there. Let us know in the comments down below if you're supporting LSU over the next week or two. And we hope it's almost 2 weeks, with the Tigers being in Omaha for the College World Series. And don't forget, we are a little under a month away from or I should say a little over a month away. Got to get the over-under correctly, especially during the season. But a little over a month away from SEC Media Days in Nashville. Glenn West, obviously, will be going. I hopefully will be going as well, as we provide some great coverage, some good interviews, and all the content you want like you've never seen before here on this channel, the one-stop shop for all things LSU Tigers. My name is Bryce Coon. This is the Go 24/7 podcast. Once again, to hit it home, if you are listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you might be finding this audio, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, follow the podcast, follow me at Bryce_Coon on Twitter, hit us up on social media with Go 24/7, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Set up the notifications so you know when we go live. We're going to have great content, like we said, interviews with commits and recruits. It's going to be a lot of fun as we expand the brand of the Go 24/7 YouTube channel. We'll catch you next time. My name is Bryce Coon. This has been another episode of the Go 24/7 podcast.